So Miss Sherry and Miss Crystal have recruited me to make a video on model airplanes, which is one of my big hobbies, and we thought it might entertain you guys and you might learn something. So I build and fly lots of model airplanes, and this is just one of them. We'll go through some more in a little bit. But first, if you don't know anything about airplanes, you might not know how they work, what makes them go and turn and climb and all that good stuff. So what every radio-controlled airplane starts with is a controller. Now, they do always look different, but they always have two sticks. And this one's special because it has some switches that let me control certain things, but they all have the two sticks. One controls the elevator. So on an airplane, you have at least two, normally three, moving surfaces. So you have the elevator, the rudder, the ailerons. So the elevator makes the airplane climb and descend, pitches the airplane up or down. The rudder makes it yaw side to side. And then the ailerons at the wingtip push on the air and make it roll side to side. Now some airplanes have something called flaps, which are these, and they add a lot of drag and help the pilot slow down for landing. Now, if you don't know what makes these surfaces go, it might be kind of confusing. So let me pop this hatch. And you can see in there, there's some servos. And when I move the stick, the servo moves. There's a long rod that comes back and moves the elevator. Now, I build and fly lots of electric airplanes. So mine are quiet, but I'll give it a little run up. So inside here is an electric motor that spins the propeller. And if we pop the hatch, you can see what feeds it. There's some lithium batteries. So these are what your cell phone or your laptop use. You can see they run inside to run the motor. So this is just one kind of RC airplane. This is a big one. It's about 7 feet and weighs about 8 pounds. It's about a gallon of milk. Now we can move on to another unique kind called a flying wing. This flies the same, but obviously there's no tail back here. But it still works. So there's a servo here, a servo there, and a motor in the back, and it flies like any other airplane. What's cool about airplanes is they don't all need motors. So you can look at this one. It has no motor or propeller. Now, this is just like a paper airplane. Gravity makes it go forwards, which is kind of weird. You'll see some video of this later, but it just sails around the sky. And then another kind is the speed airplane. So this has a really big motor and lots of battery inside, and it does about 180. I mean, your parents' car, that does about 65 on a highway. Maybe a little more. Then when you want to get old school, you have wooden airplanes. So this is all balsa wood glued together. Sticks. This one's unique and fun because it has pontoons, so it can take off and land on the water. And they're just covered in a thin plastic film. Continuing the balsa wood theme, we have another glider. Except this one has a propeller on it. So when it spins up, the propeller blades get flung out like that. And then when they stop, they fold back because the air pushes on them. And that one has a V tail too. It's called a V because it's in the shape of a V. And one last kind of unique big outdoor airplane is this. This has a camera on board that live streams to a receiver right here. So if I pick the airplane up, you can see me, my phone, and the transmitter. So you can wear a pair of VR goggles or just look through this display and watch what the airplane's doing in real time, which is really unique. And it's an absolute blast, as you can imagine. Same technology as what they use on the live streaming drones. So yeah, this is a brief overview of most of my airplanes. You'll see one more in a little bit, and then we'll go on to some flight footage, which is always fun. So we have one more kind of RC airplane. The tiny ones, the living room flyers, LRF. So this one, again, is sticks of balsa wood glued together with a very thin covering. I believe that's about 50 times thinner than your own hair. And again, has a tiny motor, a little receiver. Instead of a servo, it has what's called an actuator, and it's a little copper coil. And when you put electricity through it, it turns it into a magnet. So, oh yeah, here's the battery. Tiny. It's actually held on with magnets. That's what turns it on. If it'll connect here. There we go. You can hear that electromagnet. So now, when I move the stick, it makes noises. So these are really unique. And this entire airplane, ready to go with the battery and everything, weighs about a penny. It's about 3.3 grams. So if you take a penny, 1 US cent, that's how much this entire airplane weighs. This one's a little heavier because it's foam. Same electronics. Little tiny receiver, motor, and electromagnet. Now, funny thing is these motors are the same thing as pager motors, what makes your phone vibrate when you get a phone call or a text or you text. So yeah, this is a whole nother kind of airplane. It's a lot of fun. So on to the flight demos. Alright, we've got the big cub out here and we'll do a little bit of flying. Do a little pass. Now when your airplanes get this big, you have to fly them like a real airplane. So you have to worry about how fast it's going, how quickly you're changing directions, like maneuvering, all that sort of stuff. Not quite as easy as the little airplanes. Now I'm going to get set up to do some aerobatics. Around. There's a slow roll. It's like a barrel roll. I'll come back. I'll set up to do a big loop. I'll come back around. I'll do a mock approach to land. So I'm not going to actually land, I'm going to almost come in. It's a little windy, so I got to think about how I want to do things. Shoot the gap between the trees, miss those trees. Oh, turned it into a touch and go. So I'll just land like that again. Pop up. The gap. Keep my speed up, I don't want to stall out. A little farther than I wanted to go. I can just taxi on back over. So here I've got my DLG, discus launch glider. It's because you launch it like a discus. I don't know if there's any lift, but I'll give it a shot. Now I'm at height, I can kind of putz around looking for thermals. Since I'm having to keep it close to the camera, I'm not sure if I'll find anything. So normally you want to go out and explore. Right now, it just seems like the whole sky's going up. Not really coming down. There's my controller talking at me. My bad. Oh, there's a bubble. I can put it in the thermal mode. So things like buzzards and stuff, they ride thermals, which are bubbles of hot air that go up. So when you see those big groups of buzzards circling, that's what they're doing. It's free height, no effort required. Alright, it's time for me to set up to land. So I'm going to come out here, fly a little pattern around the front of the hill, pop the flaps, try to catch it, just like that. So here we've got that tiny little biplane I talked about earlier. So hopefully you found that entertaining or interesting and maybe learned something. Feel free to leave a comment below or get a hold of me, because I'd love to answer more questions or spread this awesome hobby.